Good afternoon, friends. Meeting on the other side once again. Uh, what we'll be doing today will be a continuation of the way we started a few lectures ago in the chapterization style. We finished the selection of the topic as a from the first page of title. Then we moved on to introduction. We handled a few subtopics over there. Then we moved on to literature review. So, having finished literature review, so the natural course is to go into the chapter of methodologies. So, methodologies is a chapter or is a place or is an event where you tend to define and structure a lot of workings of the research before you actually go and do research. So we will formally do the whole setup of methodologies maybe in the next session, but in this session we'll pick up a few subunits of from the chapter of methodologies so that we can understand it better. So in this session we will be doing sample and tools, time frame, assumption, limitation and delimitations. They are simple to sound and also simple to understand, but they play a very important role in the process of research. So, without wasting much time, trying to be funny somewhere, let's deep directly into these topics and try and see what it is all about. Before we go deeply into the subunits, uh, let's have a bird's eye view as to where this chapter of methodologies falls in the chapterization scheme. So if you see title page, abstract, introduction, review of literature, and immediately comes a research methodology. This is where we will be standing on during during our learning today. So, having said that, and having given you a bird's eye view as to where we are actually when we will be doing the subunits, let's move directly to the subunits and see what it is all about. The first subunit is a sample. Now, sample, if you remember yourself or your mother or any one of your elder or your friend who goes to the market, especially a grain shop. Generally, and nowadays everything is available in packets and so on, pre-packaged. But wherever the grains are available openly, what you do is you generally take a few grains in your hands, have a look, maybe get a feel of the of the grains, the color, and so on. What you're doing basically is you are sampling, but that is a domestic kind of sampling. Here we are looking at a scientific kind of sampling in research. So here, when we say sample, there will be also a concept called population. This will be dealt in a very serious way in I think chapter I think in unit 3 or so. But just suffice to say, sample is a part of the population which you pick up in order for your study to go ahead. So, in simple words, sample represents population. It determines generalizability. That means if you pick up a sample, then it should be representative of the whole population because you are studying a phenomenon in a social circumstances. You cannot connect with all the people in the population, so you pick up a sample. So whatever sample you pick up must represent the whole population. Selections method vary. There are many ways which we can select sample depending on your need, on the researcher's need, and your guide's guidance. You will choose the sample. but there are many available, and size matters. Suppose if you have a 100,000 people population, you can't just pick 10 or 20 as your sample. The sample size should also reflect proportionally to what your population size is. So let's look deeper into each subunits of samples that is represents the population. It means a subset selected to reflect the characteristics of the entire population. Just what we said before in a simple words, that whatever you choose, they have to be representative of the whole population. Example is selecting 100 high school students from 10 schools to represent all the schools in the district. So maybe you will choose 10 students per school out of the 10 schools, and you get 100 students, and that's good enough a representation if you have to do some study of 10 schools in the district. 10 schools themselves could be a chosen as a sample out of maybe 30-40 schools. Determines generalizability means it ensures that results can be reasonably applied to a larger group. Like I said, it should be representative of the population. Examples: finding from 50 teachers in urban schools may inform teaching strategies across similar schools. So suppose if you interview 50 teachers from different schools in the district to maybe speak of the working condition, maybe speak of the teaching styles, or maybe speak of any new method of teaching. So whatever results you get out of that that exercise, you can, if you have done it scientifically, then you can reasonably apply them to the larger population of schools, and say the results reflect the situation of the whole district. Going further into the selection methods vary. Here they have given a few basic ones, and we'll read through them. Includes random, stratified, cluster, purposive sampling depending on the research design. So it is random sampling, it can be simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, purposive sampling, and so on. So depending on your need, you can choose any one of those sampling methods. Example: using stratified sampling to ensure equal representative of boys and girls in a study. So if you use simple random sampling, you will choose samples maybe in a random way. But if the class has boys and girls, if you choose in a random way, you may end up with a lot of boys and less girls, or less boys and a lot of girls. In this situation, you'll use stratified sampling. That means you'll first choose a few numbers from the boys, and then you choose maybe the same numbers from the girls. Now, choosing from the boys, you could use simple random sampling. Choosing from the girls, you could use simple random sampling. But overall, you can term it as stratified sampling. Size matters. Sample size affects the accuracy, reliability, and validity of the study findings. A few lectures ago, we dealt in a little bit serious way about validity, reliability, and accuracy. So, if you are not scientific enough, not correct enough to use a proper sample size, then your study results may not be representative of the whole population. So maybe those results will not be reliable. Maybe they will be not accurate. Maybe you cannot hold them valid, because it may reflect about the sample and a few around them, but it may not reflect about the whole population if your sample size is not in proportion to your population. Example: a large sample of 500 students gives a more reliable insights than a smaller sample of 30. So, for example, if you have say 10,000 students or 5,000 students, so using 30 or 50 may not really be a good enough sample size. 500 would seem a good enough sample size for a survey kind of research. Having discussed samples, we'll move to tools. Once again, we will go step by step. Tools are instruments of data collection, must be reliable and valid. See, once again, the word reliable and valid is coming over here too. A good research is always concerned about the results or the process being reliable and valid at every step. Variety of tools, just like there are variety of sample selection methods, you have variety of tools, and then those tools, in the sense what they collect, must be aligning with the objectives. So when we speak to instruments of data collection, they are devices or techniques used to gather research data. Suppose a questionnaire for your survey research, that is a tool. If you are measuring some attitude aspects, motivation aspect, then you have a questionnaire with a lot of questions called items. Then that questionnaire becomes a tool for measuring maybe motivational factor or attitudinal factor of your research group. Example, a 20 item questionnaire to measure student attitudes towards online learning. Exactly what I said. Must be reliable and valid. Now, reliability and validity. Two important concepts you have to really understand is, when you measure something, then if you measure the same thing with the same tool, then the results must be same exactly as before. If they change, then the tool is not reliable. Suppose if you take a measuring tape, you measure the height of a student and that comes up to maybe 4 feet 3 inches. The next day you measure, use the same student, same tool, but now it measures 3 feet 5 inches. Then there is something wrong with the tool, because suddenly the child cannot become smaller or bigger. So that is what we mean by reliability. In case of validity, it means, suppose if you want to measure the weight of the students, normally it will be 35 kgs, 40 kgs or so. If you give the weight of the students as 1.3 meters or 1.0 meters, that means you have done measurement, you have done it accurately, but it is not what you wanted. What you intended to measure was the weight. So even if whatever you have measured is accurate and reliable, it is not valid. Only the weight measures of kgs will be valid for your study. So it ensures consistency and accuracy in measuring variables. Example, a standardized math test with proven reliability scores ensures consistent measurement. That means if you have a maths test and give it to the students, then if you give it now, they will get a certain number of marks on an average. If you give it tomorrow, then they should give a certain number of average marks similar to what you got it yesterday or a day before. Yes, you can think that maybe because they are doing the same test, they can be a little bit efficient. Yes, but there will be it will not be a very big difference. That is what we are saying. Variety of tools. Once again, just like variety of sampling, we have variety of tools also. It can be questionnaire, interviews, observation checklists, standardizing data, different kind of tools. Example, observing classroom interactions using a structured observation checklist. That means if you have to observe what's happening in the classroom and report back, then you won't be disturbing the class. You'll be sitting at the back, but you will have a structured, maybe check mark, a checklist that okay, this is happening, this is happening. There maybe there'll be some open line where you can comment. So that could be an instrument, and for research purpose, we call it a tool. Aligned with objectives. Each tool should specifically measure aspects relevant to the research question or hypothesis. Like we said, if you have to measure weight, then you cannot end up measuring height. If you have to measure aspects of motivation, then you cannot measure aspects of some other psychological factors. So whatever is there in your objective, whatever you have stepped out to study, you have to be able to measure that with the proper tool. Otherwise, the study itself will be invalid. So it has to be the tools that you use must be aligned with the objectives. Exam, Example, using a reading comprehension test to assess the effectiveness of the new teaching method. So if your study speaks about reading comprehension, and there is a new way of teaching in the class, then the tool that you prepare has to measure the reading comprehension of the learner. If not, then uh, your objectives and what you're doing doesn't match. So the research itself becomes invalid. So we'll go to another subtopic, time frame. Here, you generally try to mention what will be the time frame involved, as to when will you finish the preparation of the tool, when will you finish the literature review of the literature, when will you finish the data collection, when will you finish the actual analysis of data, when will you finish the printing of the report, and so on and so forth. So indicate start and end dates of each phase of the research. Now when you look at the chapterization, you will know that there are so many phases. So when will you finish which phase? So it helps you to generally give a direction, and it's like a stopwatch. Every time you know the time is up, time is running. So maybe it will help you to accelerate whatever you're doing at some point of time. Helps in planning and monitoring. Very simple. Once you have a timetable, time frame is like a timetable. It will keep you on track, and on your feet, and you will know exactly when you have to finish what. We go to assumption. So what happens in research is, many a times, everything is not in your control. You are just studying a few parameters in which you are interested, but the environment is very dynamic. So keeping that in mind, in your assumption section of your methodologies, you clearly define as to what all things you are assuming. For example, if you are giving a test to a group of students in your class, then you are assuming that they know the basic working of that test. Suppose you're giving some test in algebra after a new teaching method. So you will assume that they already know a few things about algebra at that point of time. Maybe everyone doesn't know, maybe someone was absent during that class, maybe someone did not pay attention, and so on and so forth. But general assumption is that since you're teaching uh, that subtopic of maths or algebra, then anything taught before that, suppose they have to have an entry behavior. So you assume that everyone is online with that entry behavior. So it is an underlying belief. It guides research and design. It influences data analysis, and need to be very explicit. You have to, because you see, when you finish your report, finish your research and write a report, you are not going to be with the report to explain. The report should explain itself. So you have to explain very clearly what all things you have assumed, so that the reader knows how much to, what value to put to your research findings. So underlying belief is statements taken as true without direct evidence. Like you have no evidence that these children know a certain, are good in certain levels of algebra, but you have to assume, because you are taking a test on a next level of algebra by teaching a new by teaching algebra in a new style. Assuming students will answer question as honestly. And that is also, when you take a test, teachers generally assume that they will not be doing copying. Some may or may not, but that you start with the assumption. That was a good example. It guides research design. So when you are assuming a few things, then how you design a research also, it comes in handy. You can keep that in mind. Help shape methodology and interpretation of the results. Assuming all schools follow official curriculum when studying teaching effectiveness. Now, there is a certain kind of curriculum, defined or drawn out by maybe the education board. So, when you are conducting a study with respect to some aspect of the curriculum, then at the back of your mind, you are assuming that this curriculum is being followed by all the schools. So you have to explicitly say in this section that this is what your assumption is. Maybe some schools are not, to some extent, but you can't control all that, during your research study, because you have come so walked so far into that study. Suddenly you cannot change it. So you assume that this kind of curriculum is being followed by the schools. Influences data analysis. So based on whatever assumptions you do, it influences the data analysis and influences how, as I said before, how the reader values or puts a value to your results. So affects how results are interpreted and generalized. Once again, same. Assuming equal access to learning materials across participants in the study. Now, suppose you are taking a test of students, then you are assuming that all the students have equal access to reading materials or to learning materials, but they may not be the case. For example, why reading materials? Even their learning capabilities will depend on a lot of socio-economic factors. But you are assuming that all the socio-economic factors are same, and so you are saying that okay, this is the average result I have got. But generally, that is not the case. We already know that. Need to be explicit. Like I said, you have to clearly mention here about what assumptions you are making, so that the reader is well aware under what circumstances you have conducted the study. Example stating that participants have basic literacy skills in the reading comprehension study. So you are taking some test on reading comprehension. Maybe you have used a new method of teaching, but at the back of your mind and for the research sake, you are assuming that they at least have some basic literacy skills. Some may be very proficient, some may be not, but basically all are almost there. And now, how does this new teaching style affect their literacy, affect their reading comprehension, and you want to find out. Just like we said, assumptions are what you assume and what may not be totally in your control. Similarly is the case of limitation and delimitations. Now, what is the difference between limitation and delimitation? Limitation is what a circumstance around your research, like say a test, which is not in your control. Delimitation is a certain factors or certain things which you can control and you rule it out. So limitation is not in your control, delimitation is in your control. So we'll try and understand what role limitation and delimitation plays. So looking at limitation and delimitation. Limitations are factors beyond the researcher's control that may affect the results or how the study is conducted. Like I said, it is not in your control. So you make a mention that this was a limitation. They are usually constraints caused by environment, resources, participants, or data availability. For example, you have taught a new method of learning in the class, and then you are taking a test. But around the time of the test, suddenly someone outside on the street starts digging the hole with that electric hammer. It creates a huge noise. There is no way you can ask them to stop. Even if you ask, maybe they will not stop. But still, you have to conduct the study because maybe you have traveled 50 kilometers to reach the school and teach the new test and teach the new methodology and take the test. So everything can't be abandoned. You still have to go ahead with the test, but you will make a mention that this was the limiting. So like that, there are several examples. So you have to mention them in the limitation section. Now, what happens in delimitation? Like I said, it is in your control. You delimit yourself. So delimitations are boundaries the researcher sets intentionally to narrow the study scope. For example, you want to study the learning attitude of students in a secondary school, but you will limit yourself to the students of 9th standard. You can do fifth, you can do seventh, you can do fifth, sixth, seventh together, eight, nine together. But for your purpose, given the limitation of your resources or your interest, you will say that I will only study the 9th standard students of this school or this many schools or whatever. So they are within your control and help make the research more focused and manageable. Because if you can also take 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th students, but if your resources are very limited with respect to time, money, and so on, then it becomes too unmanageable. So better you start with 9th standard and see what the results, and then if you have time and resources and interest, you can include the other standards at a later point of time. So that's how you delimit yourself, you delimit your research. So having said that, we come to an end of this of today's lecture. We handle limitation, delimitations, assumptions, time frame, samples and tools. So these are part of the methodology section of the chapter, and which you have to clearly state. So that gives a sort of structure to your whole what you say research design as such. Hope you have got a little bit better idea than what you started with before this lecture. Thank you very much, and meet you at the other side maybe some other time. Thank you guys, and bye bye.